Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something raw and real. Are you fighting to stay in love, or are you just trying to survive each day with someone you barely recognize? Because when a relationship hits crisis mode, when silence gets louder than words, when eye contact becomes rare, when love feels like work instead of joy, you have two options. You fight like hell to fix it, or you watch it die slowly, drip by drip. So today I'm here to shake you up, not with fluff, but with fire. You're going to walk out of here with 5 real, practical, relationship-saving strategies that'll snap you out of autopilot and put your love back in motion. You didn't fall out of love. Let's stop telling that lie. What really happened is that you stopped being curious. You stopped being interested in the inner world of the person you once couldn't stop thinking about. You started assuming instead of asking, predicting instead of exploring. You took shortcuts in the conversation, and your connection became shallow. What used to be electric turned into static, not because you don't love them anymore, but because you stopped showing up with the same curiosity that love demands to stay alive. In the beginning, you asked questions like your life depended on the answers. You leaned in, you listened, not just to the words, but to the energy behind them. You wanted to know what made them laugh, what made them cry, what kept them up at night. You were fascinated by every little detail. And now you ask, did you pay the bill? What time's dinner? You treat each other like business partners instead of lovers. Transactional instead of transformational. Curiosity is the heartbeat of intimacy. The moment you stop being curious is the moment you start drifting, because when you're not actively learning about someone, you're passively building distance. And don't be fooled. People don't check out overnight. It starts with the tiny withdrawals, the skipped conversations, the emotional autopilot. Then one day, you're sitting across from someone who used to feel like home and now feels like a stranger. But here's the truth. That spark you think you lost, it's not gone. It's buried under routine, under resentment, under years of unspoken thoughts. And the way you dig it up isn't by waiting for some magical moment. It's by choosing to get interested again. What would happen if you looked at your partner like you did on your first date? What would you discover if you sat down tonight and asked, what have you been thinking about lately but haven't said out loud? What dreams are they chasing now? What fears are they holding in their chest? Who are they becoming while you've been focused on surviving? Curiosity is the difference between I know you and I want to know more. One leads to stagnation, the other leads to evolution. And if you want to fix a relationship in crisis, you've got to get back to wondering. That's where connection begins again. Let's cut through the noise. Blame is a drug. It's seductive. It gives you a hit of righteousness. Makes you feel like you're in control, like you've got the moral high ground. They're the one who shut down. They're the one who changed. They're the reason we're here. But let me tell you something that might sting a little. Blame is the fastest way to stay stuck. It might feel good in the moment, but it will keep your relationship circling the same emotional drain until there's nothing left. You cannot fix what you're not willing to own. That's the hard truth. If all you can see is what they did wrong, you're blind to your own power. And without power, there's no change. The only way you transform a relationship in crisis is by trading blame for radical responsibility. That doesn't mean taking all the fault. It means owning your role, owning your energy, owning your reactions, even when you're hurt, especially when you're hurt. Because here's the thing, relationships aren't math equations. They're not 50/50. They're 100/100. You bring your full self, they bring theirs. And when you show up waiting for the other person to change first, you're already behind. You're waiting for a permission slip that's never coming. Radical responsibility sounds like this. I've been showing up with resentment and I haven't addressed it. I've been avoiding conversations because I'm scared of conflict. I've been loving you on my terms, not yours. That kind of honesty, it's not weakness, it's the foundation of transformation. It takes guts to look in the mirror and say, what if I'm part of the pattern? But the moment you do, you stop being a prisoner to your pain and start becoming a creator of your future. You want to shift the energy in your relationship? Be the one who breaks the cycle. Not out of ego, out of love. Love for your partner, yes, but also love for yourself. Because when you stop outsourcing responsibility, you start reclaiming your power. You're no longer at the mercy of what they do or don't do. You get to lead. You get to influence. You get to rise. The difference between a relationship that heals and one that collapses often comes down to one thing. Who's willing to go first? Not in blame, in ownership. That's the turning point. That's where momentum begins. Most people think silence keeps the peace, but in relationships, silence is a slow death. When you're in crisis, the unspoken becomes poison. It sits in the space between you and grows heavier with every moment it goes unsaid. You walk around each other like emotional landmines, avoiding the real issues, hoping time will smooth it all over. But time doesn't heal what you refuse to feel, and it sure as hell doesn't fix what you're too afraid to say. The truth? You don't need more communication. You need more honest communication. Vulnerability. Not performance, not surface level updates about your day, not sarcasm dressed up as humor to mask your pain. You need to crack yourself open. Because without vulnerability, you're just roommates with history. You're coexisting. You're surviving, not loving. And yes, vulnerability is terrifying. It feels like handing someone a loaded weapon and hoping they don't pull the trigger. But it's the only path to real connection. You can't heal what's hidden. You can't rebuild what's buried. That wall you've built to protect yourself, it doesn't just keep pain out, it keeps love out too. When you finally speak the thing you've been swallowing, the fear, the disappointment, the longing, it shifts the entire energy in the relationship. It's not about pointing fingers. It's not about keeping score. It's about saying, this is what's real for me. Can we meet here? It might be messy. It might be emotional, but it will be real. And real is where the healing happens. Say the scary things. Say, I feel disconnected and I don't know how to fix it. Say, I miss how we used to touch and I don't know when that stopped. Say, I'm angry, and underneath that, I'm afraid we're losing each other. That level of rawness, it creates space for the other person to let down their guard too. Vulnerability is a bridge, but someone has to step on it first. Stop waiting for the right moment. There is no perfect time to be honest, only the time you choose to be brave. When you speak from truth, not ego, you give your relationship a chance to breathe again. You invite connection back into the room. You remind both of you what this is really about. Not being right, not winning, but finding your way back to each other. Let's get one thing straight. Your partner is not your project. You're not their therapist, their fixer, or their savior, and they're not yours. One of the biggest traps in a relationship crisis is thinking the solution is to change the other person. If they just talked more, if they just listened better, if they just cared the way you do, then everything would be fine, right? Wrong. That mindset keeps you locked in frustration because it focuses all your energy on something you can't control, someone else. But what you can control, what actually makes the difference, is the pattern between you. Because that's the real problem, not them, not you, the pattern, the way you both react to stress, the way arguments escalate, the emotional landmines you keep stepping on. It's a loop, and you both play a part. One withdraws, the other chases. One yells, the other shuts down. One goes cold, the other goes desperate. It's the same dance over and over again. You're not bad dancers, you're just stuck in choreography that's tearing you apart. If you want change, don't ask, how do I fix them? Ask, how do I interrupt this pattern? It takes awareness. It takes humility. It takes stepping out of the moment and seeing the cycle instead of just reacting to it. The truth is, your nervous system is likely driving a lot of the conflict. You're not just arguing over dishes. You're reliving old wounds, childhood triggers, moments where you didn't feel seen or safe. And when you become aware of that, everything shifts. You stop attacking the person and start working on the dynamic. This is where emotional leadership comes in. You decide when this pattern shows up, I'm going to respond differently. You breathe instead of explode. You pause instead of defend. You get curious instead of critical. And that one shift, that small moment of self-awareness, it can change everything. Because when one person disrupts the pattern, the whole dance starts to break apart. Fixing a relationship isn't about getting someone to be who you want them to be. It's about co-creating a space where you both feel safe to grow. That starts with understanding your emotional blueprint, your triggers, your part in the cycle. When you stop trying to change your partner and start changing the way you show up in the storm, you become the calm that changes the entire weather system. That's how real transformation begins. Love doesn't die in a dramatic explosion. It dies quietly in the unnoticed moments, the daily neglect, the words left unsaid, the small disconnects that stack up until you're miles apart. Most relationships don't fall apart because of one massive betrayal. They erode because people stop showing up consistently. They stop choosing each other, not out of hatred, not even out of apathy, but out of routine, out of busyness, out of the false belief that love, once established, will somehow run on autopilot. But love is not a set it and forget it deal. Love is a practice, a discipline, a daily decision to stay emotionally engaged even when life gets heavy, even when you're tired, even when they're not being particularly lovable, because that's when it really counts. Not on birthdays and anniversaries, but on Tuesday nights when no one feels like talking, on mornings when you're both running late, on days when everything feels off and the silence is thick. If you want to fix a relationship in crisis, you have to stop thinking of love as a feeling and start treating it like a verb, something you do, and not just when it's easy, when it's inconvenient, when it's uncomfortable, when it takes effort. That's when love proves itself. It's not the grand gestures that keep love alive. It's the tiny, consistent actions, the unexpected compliment, the 5-second kiss, the hand on the back as they walk by, the thinking of you text in the middle of a chaotic day, the moment you stop and really listen instead of just hearing. And here's the thing, waiting for your partner to earn your love before you give it, that's a losing game. That's emotional warfare. Love given conditionally is love that becomes transactional. But love that's offered freely, especially when the connection feels shaky, becomes healing. It softens the edges. It creates safety. It says, I'm still here. I'm still choosing you. And that message, repeated often enough, starts to pull you both out of survival mode and back into connection. We think love fades. It doesn't. It just gets buried under the weight of life. But you can dig it back up one small intentional act at a time. Show up daily without keeping score, without waiting for the perfect moment, because love isn't something you fall into. It's something you build moment by moment, day after day. Absolutely. Here's a powerful, emotionally resonant 5-paragraph conclusion to bring your entire speech home. It ties all the key points together while leaving the audience inspired and charged to take action. So here you are, standing at the edge of your relationship, wondering if there's anything left to save. The truth is, you wouldn't still be listening if part of you didn't believe there was. That spark, no matter how buried, still flickers. And if you're willing to fan it with effort, honesty, and courage, it can ignite again, stronger, wiser, more resilient than before. Crisis doesn't mean failure. It means your relationship is asking for an upgrade. It's demanding more from you, more presence, more truth, more intentional love. It's not breaking down. It's calling you to break through. Everything you need to begin again is already inside you. The curiosity to rediscover the person in front of you, the strength to take radical responsibility for your part, the vulnerability to speak what's been unspoken, the awareness to interrupt destructive patterns, and the discipline to love deliberately, not occasionally, not conditionally, but every single day. When you lean into these things, even when it's hard, you start to rebuild something that isn't just a patchwork version of what used to be, but a whole new foundation, one built not on fantasy, but on real, lived, tested love. You have to be willing to go first, not because you're the one who broke it, but because you're the one strong enough to lead. You set the tone, you shift the energy, and when you show up differently, you change what's possible between you. Is it always easy? No. Will it feel unfair at times? Absolutely. But the reward, reconnection, healing, intimacy that goes deeper than before is worth far more than the cost of your pride or your comfort. This isn't about giving up power. It's about reclaiming it in the most powerful way through love in action. And if your partner meets you there, if they show up too, if they start leaning in once they see the change in you, then together you'll build something extraordinary. Not perfect, not without pain, but real. Something that can weather storms. Something that grows instead of withers. Something that lasts not because it never broke, but because you both chose to repair it again and again. That is the kind of relationship that transforms not just your connection, but your entire life. So now the choice is yours. You can keep waiting, you can keep blaming, you can keep hoping things magically improve, or you can decide that today is the day you fight for it, not with control, not with fear, but with truth, love, and unstoppable commitment, because it's not too late. It's never too late. As long as you're willing to show up and say, I'm here, I want this, let's begin again. That's how relationships are fixed. That's how love is reborn. Thank you for showing up with open hearts and willing minds. Thank you for being bold enough to look at your relationship, not with judgment, but with possibility. The fact that you're here, listening, learning, leaning in, that alone tells me there's hope. So whether you're here to fight for love, rebuild what was broken, or simply grow deeper together, know this: you're not alone, and it's never too late. Now take everything you've learned, everything you've felt, and go live it. Don't let this be just another talk. Let it be a turning point. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I believe in your capacity to love better, to heal deeper, and to create something beautiful from the mess. Until next time, take care, stay intentional, and never stop fighting for what matters. Goodbye for now, and go love loud.